Welcome to the Taking the Lead podcast, where we empower people to be unstoppable. I'm Christina Hepner with my co-hosts Leslie Hoskins and Timothy Cuneo. So not too long ago, we got an email from a listener who wanted us to talk about silent cars and how to navigate that with O&M and or with a guide dog and how that works if you come to campus for our programs.
It's definitely a huge topic in the field of just, I think, blindness and low vision and travel in general. It's a huge problem having all these really like electric, quiet cars, or, you know, the cars that I know mine does this when they pull up to a stop sign or a stoplight, it shuts down and then restarts. So if you think about that as somebody who's traveling blind or low vision and you approach an intersection and there's a car stop there and there's no motor running, you don't hear it, right? So you might not know. So it's definitely something that is being talked about. And, you know, is there something that they can put in the cars that's kind of like a constant sound of some kind? So I don't know of any big things that are happening that way, but there are certainly some different strategies. Timothy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I think the National Federation of the Blind and ACB is also trying to get Congress to pass a law, I believe, that there'll be a little humming noise or a little buzzing noise. Because, I mean, I don't like them myself. I can't imagine being totally blind and have to cross a street and you don't know if there's a car there or not, or if one's coming down the street. And I hate the cars that turn on and off.
Yeah.
But it's just something that there's really no fix for it unless somebody does something. There's got to be a buzzing noise or a little humming or something. And if you're in a loud area, how are you going to hear that? So that's something it's scary. And you know, Glacier, if I stepped out in front of a car, she has that where she'll turn around, hopefully, and turn around and go back to the curb. And somebody's got to do something. And I don't know what to do other than make a noise on the car.
Yeah. Yeah, that intelligent disobedience is certainly a perk to having a guide dog over a cane. I don't say it often, folks.
Yeah. But what is intelligent disobedience for those who don't know?
Yes. So the intelligent disobedience is for our guide dogs, right? It is up to our clients or the handlers to determine the best time to cross. So, you know, believe it or not, guide dogs actually don't know when to cross the street, which I know we've talked about on here. It's up to the handler to really analyze the intersection, determine how it's controlled, if it's stop sign controlled, light controlled, all of those different things, the shape and when the best time to cross is with the least amount of risk is up to the handler. So when the handler decides, you know, it's time to go, they'll say, in this case, Glacier forward. And Glacier has been taught intelligent disobedience so that if, you know, Timothy were to make the wrong decision and it's not the best time to go, Glacier is taught to stop and to not go. So sometimes that might happen with a quiet car, right? Timothy, if you walked to an intersection and said Glacier forward, but you didn't hear a car running to your side, you know, Glacier might not go. She might refuse to go.
I always, you know, like say if I'm going to from one of those crosswalks, I always wait about a second or two. I always give myself a little extra time crossing the street so I don't immediately go when the crosswalk tells me to go. I just wait a couple of seconds just so that intersection's clear, and then I tune in my ears because if a quiet car is coming by, you might hear the tires or something. I don't know. There's really not a good answer to this problem, and it is a huge problem. And with everybody buying these electric cars or like you, Christine, Leslie, that's got the one that shuts off at the stoplight, you really got to be tuned into those sections really well.
Yeah. And in my car, right, I can override it so I can turn it off. So certainly something to think in, you know, if I'm traveling in an area with high pedestrian numbers. But the other thing too, right, there are some different strategies to keep yourself safe out there when traveling with O&M, or really O&M kind of with a guide dog you can't do, but it's kind of like a step and pause research has shown to be really impactful. So as you kind of take that first step to cross the street, you kind of step and pause for a second. You can even put your hand out towards your first, you know, line of traffic or your first threat, if you will, the first risk. And that is really good. And that pause gives you, the traveler, an instant to kind of like step back. Like say I made the wrong decision, I can still take that step back before going forward. So that can be really helpful. There's flagging techniques with a cane. So again, it's just a good way to communicate with drivers like, hey, I'm going. So hopefully, right, as a traveler, if we don't hear or see that quiet car, hopefully they see us as the driver. So some things that we can do on our end are flag with our cane, kind of, you know, swinging it in a different way to make some movement, because movement often draws the eye in. So you can certainly do that. And then again, with the guide dogs, we have certainly that intelligent disobedience, which we don't want to rely on regularly, but it is a perk because it's a lot of natural instinct for the dog too, right? That dog doesn't want to get hurt or injured. So their natural instinct is to kind of get out of the way or to not go. So great for the question. We really appreciate it. And maybe we'll have a guest on and talk about it further because I think we could certainly dive into it. But if you have questions and you want to talk through specific strategies, please give us a call at Leader Dog and we'll hook you up with an O&M instructor or GDMI to talk those through. But it's a problem in the field. And hopefully, like you said, Timothy, people are advocating. Groups like NFB and ACB are out there advocating to make some noise. So thank you. That's a wonderful question.
We need to make noise, and those cars need to make noise.
Exactly. So. I like it. Let's get rowdy out there. So, well, wonderful. That's such a great topic, and we really, really appreciate it. Please do keep sending those in. But we're going to get started because today's guest is here to share both his personal and professional experiences with us.
Mark Hymes is the Community Program Manager for Disability Network, Washtenaw, Monroe, Livingston, and earned his MBA from Cleary University in December of 2024. He holds a bachelor's degree in geology from Albion College and has experience in environmental conservation, teaching campers who are blind, training AI, and coaching individuals with disabilities. Mark is also a proud Leader Dog client working with Leader Dog Bogey.
Mark, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure having you here today. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Timothy, and thank you, Leslie and Christina, for having me today. So yeah, I'm Mark Hymes. I grew up actually with retinitis pigmentosa, so my entire life I've had low vision, and as probably a normal child would, and had like those experiences out with friends, riding the streets on bicycles. I just couldn't see at night. I used a flashlight and a lot of different things, tools, but once I got older and I realized my vision was getting a lot worse, or more worse, and I needed to kind of use those mobility aids, right? The white canes, the public transportation, the different things you do growing up. Like all of my friends were getting their driver's license and driving vehicles and cars and getting those really cool fancy cars, especially the electric ones that actually make noise because their parents made them turn on that sound. Playing back to your earlier conversation. Anyway. But I couldn't do that, right? I couldn't with my vision and lack thereof. So I learned a lot of different techniques, and I grew up in Ann Arbor, so there's a lot of different options available to me for like public transportation and getting around, and it's really been a piece that has been missing ever since I moved up to Livingston County up in Howell, to where there's really not a whole lot of actual public transportation where you can just hop on and go anywhere you want kind of a thing. You have to book it in advance and get all that and that type of stuff. So as I kind of navigated careers in different fields, I really kind of found a home with Disability Network. And that's been kind of the place that has really taken me in and has been a very empowering company and organization to work for. And especially up here in Howell, where I'm expanding a lot of our reach. It's been very cool to do that.
That's wonderful. How long have you been at Disability Network?
Yeah, I've worked here since 2019.
Okay.
And I was a volunteer before doing a social program at one of the local crepes and games, which is kind of a cool concept. It was like breakfast/brunch and a whole bunch of different board games.
Very nice. And so if you started there in 2019, had you come to Leader Dog prior to that?
Yeah, so in 2016,
okay.
I trained with Leader Dogs as Leader Dogs, and then I didn't know what I was getting. Somebody said I was getting the biggest dogs they had, and it ended up being a 65-pound golden retriever named Bogey, and he's absolutely amazing. We've been a lot of different places. He's explored many different regions of the States, and actually Canada, too. We went across borders, too, for a lot of cool experiences, and been to many different locations and stuff. But his favorite thing, I think, is the water. I guess you probably shouldn't tell Leader Dogs that. Right?
Listen, we get it. They're dogs, absolutely.
But when he's out of work and off working and my wife is nearby, we can let him be a dog too.
Yes, absolutely.
That's important. And it's important to share too, right? Like there are so many misconceptions about guide dogs out there that they don't ever get a chance to be a dog. And they are. They're absolutely dogs first almost. So that's wonderful. So you came to Leader Dog in 2016, and then you kind of started a disability network in 2019. And you really do focus, like you mentioned, on transportation and travel. Did Bogey have a huge impact on that when moving to Howell and thinking about, right, like you have to maintain those skills and get out and work Bogey, and limitations in transportation, I'm sure, can be very challenging.
Oh, that's for sure. He has to get used to, because there's a transportation system up here called Let's Transportation, and they go kind of all over, and they have like paratransit buses and then vans and different types of vehicles that Bogey has to get used to on traveling on. But then I had to get used to, like I was saying a little bit earlier too, about growing up in Ann Arbor, getting on a bus and going anywhere anytime I wanted. You had to kind of plan more in advance where you're going. But then, thankfully, I live in like the downtown Howell area, so that's relatively walkable. There's a lot of sidewalks around, which is good in the downtown area. So we definitely brush up on our skills about every day, going out and about, walking the different sidewalks, going across the street to the coffee shops.
Yeah, and that downtown area is very walkable. I've been down there myself, so it's great that you're right in that downtown area. But this, actually, your podcast is going to air on National Transportation Week. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So what are some of your main initiatives with the Disability Network and transportation?
Yeah, so especially up here is kind of helping people navigate the system, right? We know for our folks in Ann Arbor, because our disability network covers Washtenaw County, Monroe County, and Livingston County. So there's many different spaces. So like the Washtenaw County transportation advocacy has been really taken off. But then here in Livingston, I've actually been the chair of our transportation coalition in Livingston County, and now am, I think, on the third year of being the chair of our Livingston County Rosa Parks Transit Equity Day Planning Committee. And the last 3 years, we have really set off a prime goal of really getting community members, elected officials at all levels, and businesses and riders, users of public transportation, all in one room to figure out and hash out what their vision of transportation is in Livingston County and what it would look like and how we would get there too. Of course, there's multiple ways to getting there. Some forms of funding that people don't like to talk about, and other forms of advocacy and looking for grants and things that more people are interested in, but there's less of. And so we are kind of at the forefront of that and really leading that advocacy and facilitating a group conversation to work on those details.
Hey, Mark, I was wondering, what were some of the biggest challenges or barriers with some of the work that you're experiencing or some of your clients?
Thank you, Timothy. That's a good question. We at Disability Network, we definitely find that there's a big need in our area, especially for, of course, one thing we covered, transportation, kind of getting around, how do they get to their appointments, their work, especially in our area. But the other pieces that come across too that I work on a weekly basis are helping people navigate like needs-based programs, kind of like Social Security, disability, supplemental security income, SSI, and helping them with understanding, because people want to work, so that's not a whole lot of money that you can get under those programs. And so we kind of help them understand how much they can work that and still receive their public benefits. And we know that people have difficulty in the workplace with advocating for accommodations too, so we help out with that. And actually, every disability network across the country, because there are 15 different disability networks and centers for independent living that cover the whole Michigan area, but there are others throughout the country. In every area, there should be a disability network or center for independent living that covers their county or their area. So that's kind of exciting. So we cover a small area, but there are more in other people's counties. So we also cover 5 core services here too, and this should be covered along with all the other centers for independent living that are in our area. So information and referral, of course, giving out resources, advocacy, both systems and individual. So like I was saying, like with advocating for different accommodations, but then also advocating at that systems level for change It's like 4 policies for transportation and other pieces, and then individual independent living skills training, and then peer support, and the last one is community transition as well too. So community transition from like that high school age to post high school and beyond, and then also to from diverting people from going to or needing to go to nursing homes to living independently in their own area.
Yeah. Disability Network is doing some amazing things all around Michigan, like you mentioned. I know myself and my colleague Alyssa Otis have gone to the Wayne County Disability Network, and we've done presentations, sharing about Leader Dogs for the Blind free services and how to get involved. So it's wonderful to have that resource and hopefully covering the whole Michigan landscape to really provide such great resources and all of the work and initiatives that you guys are doing and really connect people too. I think one of the things that we talk about as being a huge perk of coming to Leader Dog is meeting other people who are going through very similar things and sharing resources and building your support network. So I think there's so many benefits to having that. And just to take us back to the transportation, as you were talking about not having a lot of public transportation options, that was something that we were experiencing quite a bit in Rochester, where Leader Dog's campus is. And we recently did get a public bus route and a bus stop that's right outside of our campus that'll take us downtown Rochester and even all the way over to Oakland University. And then heading south, it takes all the way to, Royal Oak and beyond. So it's huge, and it's made a big impact on people having access to our organization, not just clients, but volunteers and team members and donors. So that transportation is such an important part of people's daily lives. And you mentioned living in Ann Arbor, you always had access to that. What was so hard, or one of the biggest challenges from going into an environment where it was at your fingertips to then living someplace where it's not as readily available and having to use different models of transportation? How did you handle that?
It was quite difficult in the beginning to sort of get used to that transition. But I think from being in a downtown area where things are walkable, I could get most of my needs within a mile or even 3/4 of a mile from my house. So it wasn't difficult. It just means that I would have to walk a little bit more so than I would have to ride.
Yeah, different. Did you really do a lot of research on the front end of like looking up where you were going to live and making sure that you had some nice walkable places?
Not really, actually. I moved in with my now wife in 2016 when I decided to take a work from home job for a order taking company. And it was more so kind of the convenience of being able to do that and kind of combine our incomes together before and figure out how to live together before we get married.
Yes. Listen, we know that's a challenge, right? There's so many things going into that.
Right. But that's kind of navigating the area. So I kind of just was sort of placed into it, and I made it how I could. And I joined a local gym. The Planet Fitness is only about a half mile down the road, and there's a sidewalk all the way along the way to get there. So like most of my needs are met in that whole area. But then again, if I needed something larger, I could always hop on the public transportation that I needed to just plan it ahead of time, call ahead and schedule it. But now they make it so much easier because there's actually an application that you can book your ride instead of having to call it in.
That's good. Timothy, around your area, do you have a lot of access to public transportation, or do you use different modes?
Well, I'm in a rural area, so only thing I can do is Lyft or Uber or Cheryl.
Do you have any of the pre-scheduled, like you can call and schedule a ride from your home? Okay.
I do a Lyft. Like I flew to Lubbock a couple of months ago, and I had a 2 a.m. I had to leave the house at 2 a.m.
Oh, my gosh.
So I had to schedule a ride for 2 a.m. to get to the airport. So I schedule way out in advance, so I know that that's been picked up by somebody and that they are definitely coming picking me up. So.
Do you have like in your community though that you could call, like if you had a doctor's appointment or something like that, and it would do like door-to-door service?
No. Maybe with my Medicare that I got, maybe I can do that. So maybe I think I get 6 or 12 visits. But with Cheryl, she's home all the time now, retired. But I think I can do that through my Medicare. Other than that, no. There's nothing in my area that's for people with disabilities or anything in my town.
Yeah. In a lot of communities, there's typically some sort of transportation that you can kind of get that door-to-door service. But it is, it's not convenient in the sense that you have to call ahead and make an appointment, and, it's sometimes not as reliable. So it's always good to have backup options, and why, Mark, your work is so important in these transportation initiatives and making sure that people have access to transportation to fill all of their needs.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Timothy, I wanted to ask you too, because you can get Uber and Lyft in your rural area, because we don't get that here.
Wow. Yeah, well, I'm out in the suburbs of Atlanta, so I'm close to Atlanta. So
Okay.
So
there we go.
my town's probably about 20,000 people, which compared to Atlanta is small.
Yeah.
So, I'm thankful for the Lyft and Uber, at least in my area, because that's how I used to navigate while Cheryl was still working.
Yeah.
I would go to doctor visits, but not everybody can do that in some of these towns, and a lot of towns don't have the budget for this stuff. So that's one downside of being in a small town, I guess, like I am.
Yeah.
But at least I got an alternative.
Yeah, and that's expensive too, to be able to have the funds to do that. And as we know, there are so many rideshare concerns too of traveling with a guide dog. So just lots of things to consider. And we talk about this quite often, but travel and transportation is probably one of the biggest barriers for people who are blind or visually impaired. Would you guys both agree?
Yeah.
Yep.
Now with Lyft and Uber, there's a thing there now that the driver already knows that you've got a guide dog. You fill that out now, so they see it when they accept your ride, which is a great thing. So I've been turned down I told you, Leslie, a couple months ago, I got turned down because I had a cane. And I told the driver I was blind and I had a cane, and 2 minutes later, he canceled my ride. So, it's wild.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to have some kind of transportation in towns, but not, like I said, everybody's offered that.
Yeah. And Mark, how does someone get involved with the Disability Network if they're in your area or in an area that has a disability network?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So we are connected with different disability networks too. So like if you even call us, we can kind of refer you to the one in your area as well. But most likely, it's really simple. Just search Disability Network or Centers for Independent Living in your county area, and you should be able to get the general phone number for that, and then their information and referral specialist can get you to the right resource or information or even programs too. But for us more specifically, our Livingston County office, we just opened it in last July, and we're here right in downtown Howell. It's actually like 1,000 feet from my house, which is even better. Don't have to get on any public transportation to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just give us a call and we can help with different resources, information. Even if you think you have a disability or something that is affecting your life in a way that you may need supports with, then that's a reason to give us a phone call. Our definition of disability is way more broader than any government agency out there.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Mark, so much for spending the morning with us here and sharing about your personal life, but also the Disability Network.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much to our listeners for listening to the Taking the Lead podcast. I'm Leslie Hoskins with hosts Timothy Cunio and Christina Hepner. We hope you enjoyed learning about Mark and the Disability Network. Please join us next time as we continue to dive into the world of blindness.
And if you'd like to learn more about applying to our free services at LeaderDog, you can head to leaderdog.org or call us at 888-777-5332. Don't forget, you can reach us at takingthelead@leaderdog.org with any questions or ideas. If you like today's podcast, make sure to hit subscribe and check us out wherever podcasts stream.